How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Such
Thank
an
you.
honor to have you on this interview. Hey, Bill, because you asked me to call you Bill. Bill, you've been working on a few projects with Frank Darabont and on Stephen King adaptations.
Hmm.
But you're known as a film actor, but you are first and foremost a man of theater like Chekhov, Shakespeare. How do you go from one to the other?
My I spent the first third of my career doing theater. Um, that's that's where all my training was. That's I spent 11 years in New York, um, just doing plays and off Broadway and off Broadway, and then finally on Broadway. And making the transition was um, it came late for me. Some people start right away in film, but I didn't. Um, like I say, I focused on theater, but I think it made me a different kind of actor in a way. Um, there's I always suggest this for young actors who want advice about acting. I say do some theater because it's really in the actor's hands. From the minute the curtain goes up, for the next 2 hours, it's you and your fellow actors creating this thing. If there's going to be any excitement, you're going to make it, and you're going to make it 8 times a week, and you're going to carry it for 2 hours with no one can yell cut. No one can, there's no going back and start again. There's no one can get in and edit mistakes. You just you have to somehow pull it up out of your socks and put it out there. And it's wonderful. There's nothing in the world of film or television that's like that. You're responsible for a tiny little, you know, a 2 minute scene or a 3 minute scene or something like that in film. And of course you can go back and do another take, or they can fix things in editing and so on. It's a different, I think the theater works muscles that you need or that are helpful when you get to film. Now that said, it took me the first couple of movies to figure out how to work for a camera because it is different.
So,
um,
do you
and
think
in
that
some
theater? Do you think that theater feed paved the way to your acting career in front of the camera? If so,
Yeah.
in what way?
Well, the last big theater that I did in New York was a year and a half on Broadway with Biloxi Blues with Matthew Broderick, and my first feature film was Project X with Matthew Broderick, and um, I'm pretty sure they cast me because they saw me in the play. Um, I think that's how that happened anyway. But that's how I started doing films, and films are films are a very, very different animal. Um, and like I said, it took me the first few couple of films to figure out working to the camera, working um, with someone, with the audience inches away from your face while you're going through something. um, and people saying, no, 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 the script supervisor coming up and saying, no, you put the cigarette down on that line, on that word, and take your hat off with your left hand, and so on, so that it matches, so you can match the medium shots to the master. And there was so much in the theater. It doesn't matter, you know it doesn't matter at all. um, in film, in film, it matters a lot. You're dancing with another partner who, you know, it finally dawned on me they were trying to take my picture. Uh, so,
Would you say that theater is easier than doing movies?
oh no, I think theater is harder, um, in many ways. It's much less forgiving. Um, you, like I said, you can't have a headache. You you can't eat before the show. You have eight performances, 8 performances a week. You've got to be there an hour early to warm up, or I do. Um, the and like I say, you know, once the curtain goes up, you and your fellow actors carry this thing. You know, you and that audience that night, um, create whatever's going to happen, if it's going to happen. Um, um, and it's more rewarding in some ways because you get the immediate feedback from the audience. You know, it's like an athletic event or something. You know, every night is like a slightly different game, and you try to hit it perfectly. Um, Whereas film feels much more like an improv. Um, it's,
So it's very different for
yeah,
both process. And but since we're talking about Stephen King for
yeah.
that fanzine, I'd like to know, how did you discover Stephen King? Like, was it via film or a book?
I did a. I like I said, my relationship with Stephen King has always been about, as an actor in his world. I did a I did an audio book, or an audio play of The Mist way back in 1987 or something, before I ever did movies. Um, I had done this. It was like a radio play of The Mist, and I played the main character, the father who was trying to keep his you know, trapped in this grocery store. So that was my first introduction. I wasn't reading his books. I wasn't following him as an author, um, until until I was hired to
To
start
do the audio?
creating his characters, or bringing his characters to life, and that's been a fantastic experience.
So basically,
I
the
think,
first book you actually read was The Mist.
yeah,
Eh,
yes, yes, yes.
did you continue afterwards? Like, what was the most terrifying book you read? What was your favorite one?
Oh, the most terrifying, I think, was Salem's Lot. I mean, my introduction to my The Mist was my introduction to Stephen King, but Salem's Lot sort of cemented, uh, my relationship with him. Uh, it scared the crap out of me. I mean, it's a it's a terrifying read. Uh, I didn't realize until then how frightening a book could be. Um, and again, it's a different when you're. I just did the film of Salem's Lot, which is coming out soon, I think. Um, and it's just a very, very different animal to work in it. To take his words have been turned into a script. His characters have been lifted off the page and turned into a script with dialogue, and pretty faithfully, I think. And then your job is to take that and make him a whole human being. that lives in this world on camera. And I've been doing that for, I don't know, 30 years or however long it's been, 40 years.
It's funny that you're talking about Salem's Lot because I just saw for the first time actually the movie from Tubi Hooper, which was a miniseries at that time. And I
Oh,
have
the
to
one
admit,
with David Sewell.
yes, and I have to admit
Right,
that
right.
was a really good movie.
It was
So
great. That was a great one.
yeah,
I
it
think
was.
I think I hope we've surpassed it. Um, the technology is better, you know, um, but yeah, that miniseries was terrific. That
We'll
scared the
we'll
crap
get
out.
back to this
Okay.
a little bit later. You've played in three adaptations of Stephen King directed by Frank Darabont. Can you tell us a little bit about your first encounter with him and how it was to work with him?
The very first time I met Stephen King, I did the first episode of Tales from the Crypt, the TV series, and it was called The Man Who Was Death. And it was very successful, and it sort of helped launch that series. And Frank was one of the writers that they hired to do the series. And I was visiting the set. I had shot it, it came out, and so, and I was back doing something else on the set, and Frank Darabont came up to me on the set of Tales from the Crypt and introduced himself and said, "I'm going to do this movie called Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. And I'd love you to be in it." And I said, "Sure," because what do I know? I had no idea who he was. I had never read that particular novella. And what he sent me was not the script. He sent me the book, Stephen King's collection of that anthology of Stephen King novellas. And, and I read it and I thought, well, I hope I hear from him again, because in Los Angeles, every cab driver has a script in their pocket. Everybody has a script they're working on, and most of them don't really amount to it. It's like every play is going to Broadway. They're not. But sure enough, a year or so or 2 years later, I get a call. Would you come in and audition for Frank? And Nikki Marvin, I think, was there at the auditions as well. And I did. I came in and I read for the role of Haywood, and got the job. And that was really my that's how I got the job. That's how it occurred. When they started before we started filming, they asked if we could come to this prison in Mansfield, Ohio, about 2 weeks before we started filming, to rehearse, as if it were a play, to rehearse the scenes. And I was shocked. It was like no one. I've never done a film before or since that asked everybody to show up early so we could rehearse it. But Frank wanted the people involved to work out these little interpersonal connections so that it looked like we had been together for 19 years. And he was right. I mean, that's the kind of interpersonal sinews that let the audience believe that these guys know we have a backstory. We go back, we've been locked in this place for decades. Anyway, and then we started filming.
And how was it to work with Frank Darabont on the set?
I, he it was terrific. There were he liked what I was doing. Um, as usual with directors, there's always this sort of getting to know you time, the very beginning, the first scene or two, when they're not sure how to ask you for things, and you're not sure what they're looking for, and so on. But I think very quickly he saw what I was doing with Haywood and said, "Yeah,
That's what he
that's it.
wanted.
That's what. Yeah, that's why I hired you." And which is a great. He did ask me not to do the. Um, I gave Haywood a stutter, um, and I did that. It was a character thing. It was something. It's not in the script, and he actually said he actually asked me to not do it, but it was too late. I had already I I had already given him this slight stutter, um, which kind of worked. It
It worked
it made
best for
him
you.
it made him more real for me. Um, it was just a color. It was just a note
Yeah.
that I thought softened Haywood just a hair. Um, you could play him as a flat out badass, uh, you know, mother lover. Just you know, he gets fat ass killed, and then Tim Robbins says, what happened to him when they took him to the infirmary, and you could play it like, you know, the fuck you care, get out of, like he's just a cold blooded piece of shit human. And I didn't want to do that. I thought it was more interesting if he, um, I thought it was more interesting if he was just a little more human.
Human. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Uh, we know that people in general who are fans of Stephen King think that The Shawshank Redemption is probably the best adaptation out there, even though it's not horror. But what does Bill Sadler think about that adaptation?
What do it? I think it's a. Do I think it's the best Stephen King movie?
Yeah.
Um, I I don't I don't know. It stands alone. It's really carved its place in cinema history. Um, I don't know. Is it better? Is it better than The Mist? I guess time will tell. 20 years from now, people were saying when it first came out, this is a classic, and I kept saying to them, wait, let's wait. What do you say we wait like 20 years or something and see if people still like it, the way they like Citizen Kane, or Singing in the Rain, or you know
Yeah.
the Wizard of Oz. There are classics, and then there are classics, and I advised patience.
Oh, you know what? Probably I'm not one of the patient guy because I think that Shawshank Redemption is a classic. And the first time I saw it, when I saw the ending, I was like, "Wow!" I was not expecting that because I never read the book before,
The
and
way
that
he gets.
was sublime. So, the Shawshank Redemption. What is your favorite scene from it?
Oh, uh, gosh. Um, there were so many that I guess my favorite scene from the movie is when we're putting together the library, and we're all reading the titles of these books, and I read Alexander Dumbass instead of Alexander Dumas. um, I love it. It was just easy and it was fun and it was easy to be. Um, it's one of the things that I enjoy doing as an actor is sort of playing with the character's IQ. And I often feel like I can dial it down or I can dial it up. And Hayward is not the brightest bulb in the sign. And it just becomes funnier. And that was a place where he could really be funny. When he finds the horse ball, the horse turd out in the field and thinks it's a stone. I just think in a movie that can be as heavy as that, it's nice to have a little. It's nice to get the audience to laugh or smile for a minute.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and so I guess that's my favorite scene.
And how about the Green Mile? What's your favorite scene?
Oh my God. The I don't know, it's not a favorite. I guess it's the scene where we're searching for the kids. The girls are missing. It's a flashback in the movie. It's every parent's worst nightmare. I don't know if you have children, but
I do.
When I can't think of anything more frightening than go out on the porch and there's blood on the floor and the screen door has been cut and the children are gone. It's just stick to your stomach, kind of panic. So I don't know if favorite is what
It's
I
more
would
like
call.
the more impacted one, right?
It was the hardest scene I think I've ever filmed in my life because we're shooting it all day long and all the hunt, and then when I find him and I beat him up, he's got the two bloody children in his arms and I'm punching him. I sort of had to stay in that emotional place all day, so that I could pull it up to the surface when they said action, because it wasn't the kind of scene that you could joke around with the crew and go eat lunch and and then they say action and you just you can walk through it. I couldn't walk through it. What was required was such a painful and emotional thing that I remember thinking when it was over that they're not paying me enough.
Did you chew some real punch in there?
What, did I throw real punches at no.
No, okay, because you get so invested in the scene, especially
no,
this kind of scene.
Of course, no. It has to look real. It has to feel real. But no, I didn't punch our lead actor in the face over and over and over. I just pretended.
I had to ask anyway.
And he was, by the way, he was just one of the sweetest, most gentle humans I've ever worked with. Michael Clark Duncan was just lovely. He was a delight. He was great fun to be around the set.
God bless his soul.
Yeah.
And now I have to ask also for The Mist.
What? Oh,
favorite scene from The Mist.
Do I have a favorite scene from The Mist? I think when I forget the character's name, the church lady, when she starts um,
Trying to convince
taking,
everyone.
trying to take over.
Mhm.
Uh, we need a human sacrifice, um, and my character gets caught up in that tribe, as opposed to the tribe that's trying to get out of here. Um, um, Expiation, and we're yelling expiation and calling for people's you know, human sacrifice. Uh, I don't. That was a really fun scene. I
And
like the scene too where uh, Brian Libby, who plays the biker sort of guy, he's gonna go. He's gonna. We tie a rope to him and we send him out into the mist to get his truck and bring it to the door, or something like that. And and we're we're all watching, playing the rope out as he walks out and walks out and walks out. Um, and actually, I suggested to Frank, I said, "What if the rope goes? What if the rope suddenly goes like that and then falls?" It's because you can't see what's happening to him. But if it goes way, way the hell up, that thing could be 80 feet tall, you know, um,
so you went for
suddenly,
it.
and that's what he went for. So that was fun.
And that was very effective, by the way.
Oh,
Bill had a
oh
great idea.
every once in a while I do. Also, the scene in when we go through the drugstore, the pharmacy. Um, I like that. I like that, bumping into. I don't know. It's and Frank was great. Frank was he had a different approach, which he explained to me this way. He did when we did Shawshank. He said it was like classical music. It was every scene was planned, every shot was. That was the other reason that we rehearsed for 2 weeks, was because he planned with Roger Deakins. He blocked out the scenes. They knew where they were going to lay the track. The shots were all planned perfectly. By the time he got to the mist, um, he had a couple guys with cameras just trying to catch whatever they could catch. Um, and he said it was much more like jazz. You know, I don't know what we're going to catch. I don't, it was much more improvisational and freer that way. Uh, and it was just maybe it was his approach to the material, or maybe it was his development as a director. But um, but it worked. It worked great for the mist to have this sort of almost documentary style, like you don't, um, this very loose sort of
Yeah.
disorienting. Also, I think it helped because the whole thing takes place in one big room, you know. So it's you want some wildness. You want it to feel a little crazy.
Oh yeah, until he went with that ending where everybody went like, "Oh my god, really?" What do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think? No, actually, who do you think has adapted King's work the best?
Oh dear. I don't know. I'm gonna lean. I have to lean toward Frank's adaptations of his work. I think he's a lot of films have been made of Stephen King stories. I mean, a lot of them, and I don't think um, I'm not sure how successful a lot of them were. I'm very fond of what Frank did with with,
Yeah.
with them.
Uh, can you
Tim
tell
Curry.
us? Yeah. Can you tell us a little anecdote on a set related to Darabont adaptations on the big screen?
Um, I think. Let me think. An anecdote. there's that that moment when Haywood in the library when he's singing the Hank Williams song, the Lonesome Blues. Um, Frank called me. He called me. We had been filming for several weeks already, and it was a long shoot. It was an entire summer in Mansfield, Ohio, in this prison. And they called me and said, "We'd like you to learn this song tonight. We're shooting it tomorrow." And they
Well, that was quick.
and they sent over this. Yeah, he had this idea. He wanted me to. He wanted Haywood to sing this Hank Williams song. So they sent over a little cassette, and I played it. You know, I played it over and over and over and over. So I was ready to go.
Yeah, you didn't have any choice. I mean, that was
No.
for tomorrow.
Yeah, that was. We're shooting it tomorrow. There was what else? There was I remember people were after him. There were some arguments that I wasn't really privy to between Rob Reiner, the producer at oh my God, what was it? Castle Rock,
Oh,
who
yeah.
produced this movie. When the film was finished and they were editing it together, I think there was a lot of tension about how long it was. And Frank, I think Frank stuck to his guns about, no, it needs to be this length. We need I think it also ran slightly over budget, which I remember talking to Frank about that and saying, 20 years from now, no one's going to know that it ran over budget. If you made a good movie, all they're going to know is, did you make a good movie or not? No one will remember what it cost. No one.
No. And let's face it, I mean, if it goes over budget, I mean, if it's a good movie, the producers will be good at that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I remember there were some at the cast and crew screening. I think for some reason, we could hear Rob Reiner out in the hallway screaming at the top of his lungs. I think he was watching a cut of the movie that he hadn't. That he hadn't approved or something. There was some tension there. They don't usually involve the actors in those kinds of discussions, but Frank's instincts were perfect. They were, it's really, really hard to argue with success like that.
If they're making a great job, why say anything bad? I mean, let's go
Just
with it.
Get out of their way and let them make. Yeah.
Let's get back to Shawshank Redemption. You've worked with two legends, Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. How was it to work with them?
Morgan was. I had more to do with Morgan in the movie because we were both. It just worked out that way. Morgan was lovely. I learned something from Morgan Freeman. I learned a lot of things working with Morgan Freeman, by the way. But one of the things that I learned, because that stands out, was between setups, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of waiting around for the next shot and then next shot. So it can take all day for them to lay the track and fuss with the lights and so on. And he used to sit in his chair, he would sit in his actor's chair or sit in his trailer and just like a Buddha, he was I didn't realize until later. And, and then when they're ready for him, he would go to the set and he had all the energy he needed. He had all he, and the days are long, and you do any number of takes and so on. But he was conserving energy. He was saving himself. And the rest of us young guys were running around, you know, farting around, joking and then playing, singing songs and playing games and telling jokes and, um, and then, 11 hours into the day, we're exhausted and Morgan Freeman is still there like, are you ready to film? He got it. He said, so I learned that from him. And I now understand the wisdom of, the other thing, another funny thing happened. I invited him to dinner after the movie was done. He came to my house for dinner and we were laughing, we were talking about the show. And it wasn't a classic yet. In fact, I think it opened in the theaters and then closed. It was, whatever it was, it hadn't become that yet. Not until the Academy Awards were, nominations were announced. Yeah, he came over to my house for dinner and I had one of those CD players that you put 5 discs in and then you push the button and the disc tray goes back into the machine. And he couldn't figure out he put in 5 discs and then he couldn't figure out how to get it to go in. So he just pushed it and broke it completely. He broke my brand new CD player. So if you're listening, Morgan, that was like you could buy me a new CD player.
And those were expensive at that time.
It was one time.
Oh, go ahead.
We were filming around the dinner table, and it's funny. I think everybody sort of brought their A game, everybody sitting around that table was engaged in the scene in a funny way. So it wasn't like there's a star and then, it's not like there's Tom Cruise and then there's everybody else. And one day I had gone to the dentist. I had a toothache and I was late coming to the set because I had to go to the dentist and they gave me some pills for the pain. And I showed up and I'm doing this scene sitting right across the table from Morgan. And I told him what was going on. He said, you're a little drugged up, aren't you? It's like, you look just a little bit too happy to be here. So he was delightful. Tim and I got to know each other too later on. Tim used to go to flea markets and look for old guitars, and I did a lot of that myself. Yeah.
Oh,
good times.
Out of the 3 adaptations of King you've worked on with Frank Darabont, which one was the most difficult to shoot?
Oh, it was probably the most difficult to shoot was the Green Mile, I think, because like I said, when being in that place where you're imagining the loss of a child. And my wife and I had a daughter who was about that age at the time. And so it was even more raw. It was that was. I'm not a real methody actor, but I knew what was required for the scene. Like I I couldn't just snap it on and snap it off, and you know. So yeah, that was probably the hardest.
Yeah. Now you've been working on Salem's Lot. We've been talking about it a few minutes ago. And it's been kind of unclear the part you've been playing in a movie. So, are you allowed to tell us what it is?
I think I'm allowed to tell you that I'm not playing Barlow.
I was hoping for it.
I know, well, that would have been an interesting. It would have been an interesting choice. I would have loved to play Barlow. Um, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if I can tell you what I play in it. Um,
And I thought there we would have exclusive news.
um, I place. I am like Haywood. I play someone who's not the brightest penny. He's not the sharpest tool on the workbench. Um,
Like,
and he really doesn't like vampires and scary shit like that. So I'll
okay,
say I can say that much for it.
I
Um,
got a good idea now.
uh, yeah, yeah. He's he's not at all good with scary crap. Um,
Hey, let's talk about Tales from the Crypt. One of my favorite movie,
oh, dude,
Demon Knight.
yeah.
And for people who doesn't know, you also play in Bordello of Blood because you play the mummy.
Wow.
were were you a fan of William Gaines' comics, and if so, why?
No, I had never heard of them before Tales from the Crypt. Um, Before I came in and auditioned for it, I was. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it quickly again. They brought me in to read. Um, no, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Are we talking about the episode, the TV series, or the movie Demon
Well,
Knight?
let's start with the TV show because you started
Oh,
the first episode of the first season of Tales from the Crypt
right, right,
with an episode directed by Walter Ill. What
correct.
was your relationship with the series at that time?
I didn't. That was the very first. That was my first uh, encounter with the series. They had me in to read for the cop at the end who arrests Niles Talbot. Um, all he and I did the audition. It was remarkable. I came in and read for Karen Ray, and all he says in the whole piece is, "Mr. Talbot, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Fade out. That's it. That was the entire role. I just read it for you, and I finished, and I asked Karen Ray, the casting woman, what's up with the role of Talbot? And she said, "Oh, they want a name. They're looking for a, they want John Malkovich, or you know, they want a name actor for that." And
Mhm.
I said, "Oh," and I left. And I got halfway across the parking lot to my car, and she stuck her head out the window and said, "Bill, come back." She gave me the sides for Talbot. I said, "Come back on Monday and I'll put you on tape. We'll see what happens. But black out your teeth and grease your hair or something because you're too cute. You're you look you looked you look too nice." So I came back on Monday, and it was this monologue. He talks right into the camera in these great big monologues, like he's talking to the audience, And I think because I had done so much theater, it was easy. It was easy peasy. and I did it, and I got the job, and we shot it, and they paid me $1,700, I think, for a half-hour show, and that was
That
it.
was it. That was
And
it.
they launched, it launched. I, Walter Hill directed it, and it it brought me to the attention of Joel Silver, Bob Zemeckis, and Dick Donner, and Lauren Schuler Donner, and Walter and Frank Darabont. And I worked with all of those people subsequently. I mean, the next thing that Joel Silver was doing was Die Hard 2. And he cast me in that. And then Demon Knight, of course. So that's, anyway, that's the TV show. That's sort of how I got in the door.
And the TV show became a cult TV show. Why do you think it happened?
Because it was fun. Because it was so much fun. All of these people, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and everybody wanted to. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to do an episode of this crazy, gory comic book. I was not familiar with the comic book before I did that, and then I met Mike Voss, who did all of those comic book illustrations for the show.
Did the directors add total freedom on the production of the episodes?
He did. I don't know about other directors, but Walter Hill had. I think he had a great deal of freedom because it was for HBO. It wasn't there was no studio breathing down his neck. It wasn't like there's millions and millions of dollars riding on this motion picture that he's making. It's a half hour thing. I used to come in. There were a couple times when I showed up on the set and Walter was writing. He was writing monologues for me and saying, I would read them. He'd say, read this. And I'd read it and he'd say, good, go get ready. We're going to shoot that. We're going to shoot that. And later that day we would shoot this, I sort of felt like he liked the character that I came up with. And so he kept modifying the script. He kept giving that character more to do and more to say, and letting him shine more. But yeah, I think he had a lot of freedom.
And then you worked with Walter Hill on two production, which is Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood. But how was it to work with Walter on these movies? Well, let's just say with Demon Knight.
Well, Demon Knight was Ernest Dickerson directed that. It wasn't Walter.
I knew that.
I knew you did. You were testing me. That was a really fun shoot. It was done for $1.98, I think. It was not a terribly expensive movie, and we shot the whole thing in this abandoned airplane hangar in Sherman Oaks or Van Nuys or something over in the valley. But that was really great fun to do. That was such a great cast. I mean, Billy Zane and Jada Pinkett, CCH Pounder and Thomas Church. And it's just like everywhere you looked, everywhere you looked on camera, it was another terrific performance. It just made it fun to do.
Now, to get back to Walter Hill, what I meant is producer and not director. To see you in the first episode of Tales from the Crypt, and then in the first film, Demon Knight, what was it, a coincidence or was it intended since the beginning?
No, I think they just. I I think Joel Silver and that little group of executive producers, Walter and Dick Donner and Bob Gale and Bob Zemeckis, and Joel Silver. I I think when they found something that worked, they kept doing it. You know, they was like, I guess it's like anything in the business. It's if you find people that you really enjoy working with and their stuff is great or good, you hire them again. You know, you sort of do. And that's what happened with the Bordello of Blood. They asked me to do the mummy in that, and they asked me, you know, I don't. I worked with Walter on Trespass, the movie Trespass. I'd worked with Joel Silver on Die Hard 2 again. So it's like I became part of that family of performers.
Mhm.
And that's what I became identified with, that brand too, the Tales from the Crypt brand. So, which was great. It was good for me.
How was it to work on the set of Demon Knight?
It was, uh, it was good. It wasn't. It's not a. It's not for a big. It's sort of become a cult horror movie now, but it was, like I said, it was not made for a lot of money, and um, all the special effects, I think, were practical, or just about all of them. It was great fun.
Was it complicated to work with the makeup process? Was it difficult to deal with?
No, well, not for me. I had very little makeup in that one, but we had we had trouble with pigeons. I remember up in the rafters of this airplane hangar, there were dozens and dozens of pigeons that would crap on us, and and there was just this sort of concept. I don't know if you've been around pigeons much, but they make this sort of,
Yeah.
and then they talk to each other. So, and you're trying to do a scene, and all the way through the scene there's this, so they didn't know how to get rid of them. They were shooing them away, and they, at one point, they took a shotgun and with blanks, I think, or
And Fire in the Sky.
they fired these blanks off, and it scared the crap out of the birds. Wow! And they all took off and flew away for a minute. And it was like bang, action. And you would do this, and you would do the scene quickly until the birds came back. You know, it frightened them all away, and then they came back.
Would you say that this was the biggest challenge of the production?
No, I don't know if it was the biggest challenge. It was a fun movie. Ernest was great to work with. Ernest Dickerson, the director. No, I think the biggest challenge for me was that I kept having ideas that I would ask, what if we did this, and what if we did that, and it was sort of like little changes to the script. And there was they had edited. There's a scene where we're all chased up to the top of the hotel, and they finally say, "Breaker, what the hell is going on here?" And he launches into this little flashback, this speech about how it all began. This is the mythology around the key and why he's being chased and all of that. And it was so chopped up over the different edits that it didn't make any sense to me. So I did a rewrite of that little speech, and I asked the writers if I could, do it. And it made it end it ended up I ended up doing it because it made sense. It just made sense. But I remember it. Joel Silver called me on the phone on the set, said, "You're an actor. You're not a writer. I'm hired. You know, you need to do the script the way it's written." That's okay, Joel.
Yeah, you have to listen.
Okay, whatever. Um, but little thing. I mean, little things. I would have ideas like there's a when the sheriff gets punched and the fist goes through his head and so on. Um, I remember asking Ernest if we could. I said it'd be great if I'm handcuffed. If my hands are handcuffed, I've been arrested, and we're all watching this happen, and I've got to get a key. I've got to get his key and get these cuffs off and get to a gun in time, you know, before he gets to me, or else, you know, it's sort of like,
So that
you
wasn't
know,
in the script?
no, not exactly like that, but it was sort of, I sort of had this image of like there's a train coming down the tracks. Can he get himself untied in time to get off the tracks? And it's coming closer and it's coming closer and it's coming closer and he's almost there and he can't get the key in the hole. And I just thought it would jack up the, you know, and I think I suggested it, but Ernest pulled it off. Beautiful.
I gotta do a shout out to my friend Steve Villeneuve because his favorite movie is Demon Knight. It's such a classic for him that he decided to do a podcast show called Demon Knight at Noon. In French, it says Les Chevaliers du Démon du Midi. And he wears a cowboy hat on his logo.
Oh yeah.
And he's such a big fan. When we went to Monroeville, we actually bought for him for his birthday the key that was made by someone, and he was freaking out.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah. So if you want to say a little word to Stephen Neuf, I'm sure he'll be happy.
Stephen, great to almost meet you. Congratulations. Congratulations with the key.
So what does the Tales from the Crypt mean to you now, today?
I guess I'm proud of the work we did. It was great fun to do, and I think it was great fun for audiences. But I love the fact that people are still discovering it. You know, people are still watching Demon Knight, and enjoying the movie, because that doesn't always happen. there there are lots of movies out there that came and
It
went,
doesn't work. Yeah.
and you can't watch them now. It's like, you know, the writing or the acting or but I would love to see the series, the episodes. I don't know if they're available.
Yeah, they're available on DVD.
No, but I mean like streaming, so like on Netflix or
Probably on HBO.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good. I didn't know.
I became
I can't
also
figure out the new television world.
the streaming world. It's not easy, and it's actually
Yeah,
very costly too.
I spend a lot of time.
Yeah, he has a good question. Jean-Louis wants to know,
What?
how was Dick Miller when you were working with all the demons around?
Dick Miller was lovely. He was a wonderful guy. He told the best story about. I don't know if you know this about him. He did the Roger Corman movies. You know, the
He did a lot.
super low budget early movies. There was one time when he played a Native American. He played an Indian, and he played the cowboy that shot the Indian. It was like, And I thought, now that's acting.
And
But
it's fun because Dick Miller has been in like I don't know how many movies, and
yeah,
even Joe Dante became a huge fan of Dick Miller, and that's why he's playing in every damn film he did. And yeah,
Dick Miller was lovely. He had I think he had a lot of fun on the set of uh, what did he play? Uncle Willie.
Uncle
Um,
Willie, yep.
uh, yeah, yeah. No, he was great fun on the set, and he got
Uh,
to hang out with all these busty young women at
yeah,
one point after he becomes a demon.
that's actually a huge bonus. This is actually a personal question. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Big fan of Bill and Ted, and Bill
Dude,
and Ted Face the Music. How is it to play Death?
Death that was another one of those with Karen Ray, the casting woman, and and as a result of the theater that I did early on, um, oh, I've lost you. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Uh, um, without that theater, there wouldn't have been my Death performance, because the the accent the the accent that I did was a Czechoslovakian accent that I stole from an actor that I did a play with in New York. That Czechoslovakian best out of three was that was I don't it was all of the theater that allowed me to play somebody that big, that strange and fun. But he was great. Again, it had to do with that the IQ thing that I said. The Grim Reaper's not the brightest person either. um,
Was it
um,
was it your idea to give him an accent?
yeah,
Yeah, that was. This is such a great accent.
yeah, no, I came in. In fact, I asked them. I told the casting people I'm going to come in and I want to do an accent in the audition, and they said, "Oh, maybe that's probably not a good idea," because no one thinks that American actors can do accents like those British actors can. They assume that all British actors can do all of the accents in the world, and they assume that there are no American actors who are any good at any of that. But I'm pretty good at a lot of them, and that was one that I brought it to the first audition. He came in fully born, and it was just funny that it made the words funny when he in the audition. He was funny, the character was funny, and I think I was probably the only person that could make those words funny, because they weren't really written. There wasn't a lot of obvious humor in the way that it was written. He was kind of scary. I don't know.
So another great idea from Bill to
Ano-
make a character perfect.
Another great idea from Bill.
Was an honor to talk with you. Thank you very much. You are a very
Thank you.
nice guy, and this was a privilege for us.
Thank you.
Merci, Ben.
Thank
Merci.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it a lot.
We also did. You have yourself a very nice day in New York,
Merci.
and
You
we'll
too.
be we'll be watching Salem's Lot for sure.
Yes. And then you'll see who I play.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bill.
Take care.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day.